Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WrestleWatch podcast, the only podcast that focuses on the world of free agency in professional wrestling. I am Doug.
And I'm Ryan here. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm all right. I got my coffee. I'm eating a Pop-Tart, which is very nice.
Yeah, that is very nice. That's the greatest breakfast known to man.
Yes. Listen, and you got to keep it simple with the Pop-Tarts because they go off the handle sometimes with some of the flavors. I'm a strawberry guy, strawberry only.
I do the wild berry. Usually.
Maybe the wild berry. I definitely can't do any like the chocolate ones, like the cookies.
No.
They're just gross.
That's not breakfast.
That's not even dessert. They're just nasty.
Well, speaking of things that are more dessert than nasty, we have a little bit of an episode to go through with some hot updates to the WrestleWatch tier list. Hopefully, just as hot as your Pop-Tart if you microwaved it or toasted it or anything.
Well, you have to.
Okay. Well, good. So we might as well just, jump right into it. What the big thing that happened this week, I think, is probably the person that is now just debuting on the tier list in A tier, which also big news. We have an A tier now.
We do.
We have an actual A tier. It's crazy. It's been a while, but it feels like things are starting to heat back up with free agency. So the big name that got added this week, we're just going to hop right in. We'll go back and, go through every tier and do the whole shtick that we do every week here. But first off, got to talk about Ricochet, right?
Yeah, I think we should talk about Ricochet, and then we'll go through the rest of the tiers, just because I think that we have a lot to talk with him.
Yeah,
because obviously he has left WWE. He is done, which I'll say this: I'm happy he did, not necessarily just because I'm happy he's gone, because I've been someone who's always been hammering I'm not a big fan of like, oh, this person's, fiance or wife or girlfriend are there, so they're probably going to stay, or a boyfriend are there. I've always been someone where it's like, I just try not to focus on that because I don't buy that. And I'm very happy that I finally have a data point that I could point to in the future when someone points that out. So that's the big thing I like with Ricochet right now.
Yeah. Although there were plenty of people that have been asking to every single person they can, oh, what does this mean for Samantha? Oh, is Samantha leaving? And it's like, well, two people can have two different jobs sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, like come on, people. Let's.
Although at the same time, some people were doing conspiracy theory about the fact that Chelsea Green's theme now includes in the beautiful Def Rebel style. The intro note is Samantha announcing Chelsea Green, and somebody was like, maybe that's insurance in case Samantha leaves. But it's probably just because she's on a different show now. That's all.
Yeah, probably. But once again, it's like we're in a situation where, in the world today, like 99% of, couples do not work at the same job. So yeah. I think it always just bugged me that people feel like these couples are so insecure that they can't like work in two separate places. So that was always a thing for me. They kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I'm happy that I have a data point to point to now.
Although I believe that historically, at least, it did seem like that they were getting put on the same show. So it might be a thing for them, but it's not like every single couple always every time has this as like a thing that they need.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, Ricochet, his show has been WWE Speed lately. So.
Oh yes, and he dropped the Speed belt. I don't know if people saw that because they might have, their browser might have kicked them off of X.com because it wasn't Twitter.com anymore. But he lost the Speed title to Andrade, which is interesting as well. A former WrestleWatch tier list person there.
Yes, Andrade, who by the way is already bitching online. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I try not to swear on here.
And yeah, that was keep it. No swearing.
Yeah, I know.
Danhausen, D tier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you noticed that he was the first one. Like he wins the title and he's already complaining He's
Yeah.
been complaining that he's back again. Like this guy complains everywhere. It's hilarious.
Well, I mean, it's not a prominent lucha promotion, like AAA or CMLL or AEW, as Andrade pointed out. but
Yeah, it's it's
uh,
it's wild. It's
but
absolutely wild.
speaking of AAA, CMLL, or AEW, uh, at least two of those are probably places that we might be seeing Ricochet soon, right?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear. Okay, so let's like go through like his options.
Yes, yeah. Let's also like then talk about why A tier is the place once we go through the options. I
Yeah,
think just
yeah.
to
So
give a because it's been a while since we've had an A tier. We have to get back on the hook, of course.
so let's start. Let's do it this way. Let's start with like going through like some of the promotions he's been at in the past,
Yeah,
and we'll start with the ones that are not like tiered promotions, the ones we do not consider as a jump. So
yeah,
I think the first place to start, since we're talking about Ricochet, is going back to kind of his roots a little bit. First one would be Dragon Gate.
yeah.
So I do not see, first of all, the Dragon Gate that he was in back in what, I don't know, when was that the Dragon Gate US? It was like the
Like
2016
2010,
year. No,
2016. Yeah,
yeah.
early 2010s.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it would have been before 2016. What am I talking about? That was best of the Super Juniors at that point. So based off of that, it's not the same company.
Yeah,
Like
no.
it's a different Dragon Gate. It's not run by the same people. And so and frankly, that's him kind of going backwards. So I think it's fair to say he is not going back to Dragon Gate unless it's like
Well,
for a stop off or a one off or something.
the pushback that I will have it's not specifically for Dragon Gate, but the general concept of him going and doing a what I've been calling like a super indie run, kind of like what we've been seeing with a few other folks that are on the tier list, some that might have gone up this week. Like like Grizzled Young Veterans went and did like a bunch of indies. Mustafa Ali, he went out and just ran through indies, or Matt Cardona has like perfected that as like a career move.
Yeah. Or
So
We have Trevor Lee starting up doing that now, it seems.
yeah, so that is a possibility if he wants to go that route. I think that he has enough of a cachet, and the fact that he's been with WWE since what, like 2018, he has like over 5 years now where he has not been going and doing these bookings, that maybe some of those promotions might think, hey, this is how I can get a buck, is having Ricochet put his head through the top of the ceiling,
Yeah.
at this bingo hall. But there are a bunch of these indie kind of promotions that he's never even worked, probably like a Defy, like Rev Pro kind of level promotions that I would bet love to have him if he wants to go that route. I think that he would be able to make that work.
Yeah,
Uh,
I could see him doing a DPW or even
oh
was
yeah,
it
DPW would love him.
West Coast Pro or like or Prestige. Like
Yeah.
these are essentially the like the boutique indies, if you will.
Yes.
The prestige indies, I guess you could say, even though prestige is an indie, but that's kind of what it is now. I mean,
Yeah.
PWG is not running.
Yeah.
Um, there used to be a major promotion in just about every major city, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. A lot of them have just kind of either stopped running or they've kind of shifted to less of a super indie model and more of a let's work with local talent and just kind of keep our budgets low, which is
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot of, and that's over since COVID, definitely, but even before COVID a little bit, and I think that's just the
Yeah.
nature now. So, and I think that's why it's also been a little tricky for Mustafa Ali to really. I mean, he's done well and he's got a nice little run, but I don't know if he's necessarily built like that crazy buzz. I think
Yeah.
people are thinking about his TNA run, and that's about it right now.
Yeah, I saw someone comment within the committee chat room earlier today that they were talking about the TNA show that just was last night, Against All Odds, which we'll probably get into a little bit later with two people that went up the tier list, the Hardys. But he was pointing out that like Mustafa Ali has had like a bunch of like these really great matches on TNA shows, but nobody's really talking about them, and it might be because like in general, it just like the buzz isn't there as much as it could be or should be for the quality of matches. But it could just be like that's just like how it happens in TNA. It's like it feels kind of like I'm getting acid flashbacks to like 2006, 2008 TNA, where it's like, yeah, we have like the greatest division ever, and it's not in the main event. The main event is a bunch of old guys like doing legacy acts, you know? So it's like hard for somebody that's like going on like the X division route to really break through, I think, in TNA to go to be like break through from TNA into the general wrestling zeitgeist is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to describe it, and it is tricky in that regard.
Yeah, and it's disappointing, I think, because like I when I watch TNA shows, like I actually do enjoy them, but like it's just that I just it gets hard to watch when it's like you have like the big focus is the Hardys at the end of the night rather than like cool matches with ABC or stuff like that. But anyway, that's getting off topic a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, I was gonna go to the show actually.
Oh yeah, because it was in Cicero. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was not far, and I had a friend there who essentially texted me at the end. It was just like, you made the right call in not going.
Oh.
And then I think he said that he enjoyed Mustafa Ali's match, and that was it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, let's get back into a little bit with Ricochet. So I think that the odds of that being the path for him, the super indie kind of thing, I think it's a possibility. But like if we were to put it on a tier list of where he's going to be going, I would probably put it at like a D tier kind of a feeling. Like I think there are odds of other things far more likely.
Yeah. And it's the other thing to keep in mind, when especially looking at Mustafa Ali's indie run, I feel like he's cooled off a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's necessarily TNA. I mean, I feel like the indies are not the place to get heated up right now. They're a good place if you're looking to get a payday or if you want to try to build up some buzz. But if you're someone who's already got buzz, I don't know you would need to do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, like we're going to talk about Lio Rush later on, but I think that he seems to. I think he's regaining his buzz, you know, about him by doing these like few matches with AEW. But we'll talk about him in a second.
Yeah.
So back to Ricochet. That covers like that route of promotions that we don't talk about on WrestleWatch, the other promotions in the world. Now, if we're looking at the ones that we have on the tier list, well, WWE obviously he's not going back there.
Are you implying that Court Bauer isn't going to be throwing money at him? We're not going to go through MLW, perhaps the NWA.
Yeah, maybe he could go to Sukiban. Maybe he could do that one too.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, yeah, I think the reality is I think we're looking at. I don't think he's looking at any of those lower tier ones. We could just skip those.
Yeah, we could probably skip WWE. Obviously, we could probably skip Stardom. Maybe. I think maybe.
But I do think the next one we should probably talk about before we go over TNA. I think we should talk about New Japan.
Yes. Yeah, I really think that that's a possibility.
Yeah. I think I'll say this. I think it's possible. But I also feel like if because here's the thing, he left New Japan to go to WWE.
Yeah.
And I don't, especially in this current environment, the environment New Japan is in right now, I just do not see a reason for him to go back, especially when the company's struggling so much. The yen is weak. They're struggling. It just doesn't seem like this would be the time for him to go back. So I don't necessarily see that unless it's like for like a one-off or something, or if he gets a spot in the G1, you know. I think that the G1 blocks are coming out
tomorrow at some point. Yeah.
Really soon. So I guess we'll find out, but I don't think that's happening. So I think we can go ahead and skip New Japan.
I would say though, with the New Japan thing, so I would counter what you said about they're not in a great spot as a reason why maybe he wouldn't go there. I think that's a reason why he would go there, because I think then he's very valuable to New Japan. Like if they get somebody that like has previously competed in New Japan, was, you know, fairly over in New Japan, won titles in New Japan, and comes back, like that's I think that's gonna work a little bit differently than these other folks that they've tried out recently of these former WWE talent, like Nick Nemeth and Matt Riddle and all that kind of grab bag of people. I think that Ricochet is somebody that would actually break through.
That's not a bad point. Especially and we'll talk about AEW and where he'd be slotted there, but when we're talking about all of his possible landing spots, he potentially has one of the highest ceilings there at New
Yes.
Japan.
Yeah.
I think they could. Now, I will say this: I think he has a higher ceiling somewhere else. But in terms
Oh.
of,
Hmm.
but in terms of, maybe like prestige promotions that are actually seen very, very strongly, I think he probably has the highest ceiling there. And obviously, they pushed him to the moon last time. He won Best of the Super Juniors. I believe
Yeah.
he won that year. I believe he swept the tournament that year.
I think so. Yeah, 2014, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so yeah, he swept the tournament. Yep. It was him versus Kushida that were on perfect points.
yeah.
And then that
So
was the final, yeah. Hey,
yes.
Kushida, he's in TNA. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So and that's what I think that's why I want to talk about next is TNA. I think that TNA is probably the promotion that he has the highest ceiling in.
Definitely. I mean, as long as, again, as we were just talking about, as long as they don't fall into that revival feeling around 2008 where the main event mafia and Hulk Hogan were running things and there's have like only old people in the main event scene for acts. I think that yeah, he could definitely be top of the card in TNA.
Yeah, I mean they could give him a big push, and I think they would. It's just a question of is TNA. I don't okay because we always said for a while that TNA had money for like one or two really big names.
Yes.
Did they blow all this money on the Hardys and
I
Nick
hope not.
Nemeth and who else?
Ryan Nemeth.
And Ryan Nemeth too.
Yeah,
And yeah, so is this where all the money went? Because if so,
God, I
then
hope
I mean,
not.
I don't know that they're going to be able to bring in Ricochet. I mean, I feel like based off last night and the direction it was going, it doesn't look like that's necessarily what the plan is.
Yeah, probably not. But I do agree that I think that Ricochet, if they go back in the direction of the main event being a bunch of as the kids call it, true graps men, uh, and, Josh Alexander and stuff like that, I think that he would fit in that scene. If they go direction that it seems like they're going in, I'm not so sure if he would uh be able to break through in a booking sense. Not in a amazing match sense. I think he would break through in that way. Yes, of course. But like look at Speedball. Like he's similar-ish. I mean, the same basic style. You know, um, there are commonalities in their style with high flying and stuff like that. Um, but I don't see him competing for the world title right now, and maybe Speedball should be, But this is a little side tangent of a thing to get to the point of I think that AEW is more likely.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going to go to now.
Although I think the highest ceiling, of course, is Stardom because he could win the high speed championship. But
He could
yeah,
on X exclusively.
yes. So AEW, Doug, why do you think that is the hottest, easiest option for him to go?
Well, I think a larger point that I want to kind of bring up with a lot of these free agents that leave, they come up whether it's in AEW or WWE specifically. And I'll compare him to another person, and that's going to be Chad Gable.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you get these people that come up and it becomes the question you have to ask, and I kind of talk about this with my flow chart, is which promotion would value them more?
Yeah.
And I want to start with like Chad Gable because he's up right now, although he's probably going to resign, I would imagine. And the reason I think he's going to resign is because I think that he is much more valuable to WWE than he is to AEW. I think he's a solid worker, but AEW has plenty of those. I mean, he doesn't really he wouldn't fill a role in WWE and AEW that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
He is He's a good hand, but he's never going to get pushed in AEW. And he doesn't, I mean, he's kind of getting pushed in WWE right now, but, and I don't think that AEW would push him higher than he's getting pushed in WWE. And because of that, I think that WWE values him more and would pay him better.
Yeah.
So I think he's like a perfect example of a guy that should stay where he's at. On the flip side, you take a look at someone like Ricochet, who has really been pretty relegated in WWE. He's not a strong talker. He's kind of well known for his ring work. And that's not to say that, being a strong talker isn't important in AEW. I think that it's been a strong promotion for, certain periods of its existence. But it's definitely a promotion where if you can get by a lot easier if you're a good worker.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricochet is obviously a phenomenal worker. So I think his ceiling is high, and is a lot higher. On top of that, that's not even factoring the fact that we have this built-in story with Will Ospreay, which is, let's be honest, in AEW, that's going to be like a top of the card main event level feud that would have a lot of interest.
Is it though?
I think it is. I mean, okay,
It's Ricochet.
I know, but
this is where we need to come back to Earth, I think.
Okay.
It's Ricochet.
I say this, okay. And maybe it's because I am someone who was watching that Best of the Super Junior, both of them, in real time when that was happening and how huge that was. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin was talking about those matches on his podcast. This is a guy who talks with Gardner half the time, on his show. Like it was.
He's a nice cat too.
Yes, it was a big deal at the time. So maybe in my head, I'm still having kind of like that thought, and maybe I'm gonna be, woken up and surprised when nobody cares because.
Well, it's 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10 years ago, and then it's kind of wild thinking about that it's 10 years ago. But yeah, so I guess we'll see if people still care, still remember that.
Well, I mean, I would point out that what did he do the next year? They had a Super Junior Tag League in 2015. He won that with Matt Sydal.
Yes, but
so
to be fair, I don't think anyone cares about the Super Junior Tag League.
Yeah, but it's like that's like if you would look at the people that he beat in the Best of the Super Juniors tournament that year, 2014, what's like, Kushida and the Young Bucks were in that one. Kenny Omega was in that one. That's fun.
Yeah, to be honest though, that Super Junior Tag League was that tag team was very good. It was very fun. I know I wouldn't be opposed to them reuniting that tag team because they did like their finisher was like a synchronized shooting star press off the top rope, I believe, and it was very cool.
Here's a thonk for you then on that path. Here's how I'll phrase it. Do you see if they were to reunite that tag team, do you think that they're winning the AEW tag team championships, or would they be more likely to win like the Ring of Honor tag team championships?
I'll be honest, I don't think they're reuniting that tag team. I'll start with that.
Yeah.
But
I'm not a Ricochet hater. I like Ricochet. He's a fun guy to watch in multi-man matches. I think that's been most of my experience with him though, because like over the past few years, that's all they've really given him to really showcase himself, other than like a few like little highlight matches here and there for intercontinental stuff. But like for me, like I've seen people be like, "Oh man, like Ricochet, oh yeah, him versus Ospreay, that could headline Wembley." And I'm like, really? Like of all the things you could have headlining Wembley, like I don't see the vision at all. Like honestly, like there are bigger matches. I don't. Maybe Ricochet is a big talker and we don't know it. Maybe he's. I just don't. Like I like him. I'm not saying I don't like him. Okay, just to get that out of the way. But like I see him more as it within the AEW sphere of things. I don't think that he's like somebody that's going to be like seriously contending for the world championship. Like I see him as somebody that could, be in the Continental Classic, definitely. Which I think is for my record, Continental Classic tier is like basically top of the card or upper mid card,
Hmm.
And I see him as that, definitely, but I just don't see him as like the main event man per se in AEW.
Yeah, and I think we'll see where they go with this. And my okay, do I think that Ricochet is ever winning the AEW World Title? No, I don't think that. Do I think that Ricochet could win one of the, billion mid card
Secondaries.
titles?
Hey,
Um,
just as many as WWE, okay?
yeah, and listen, I'm not actually hating on them. I think they're all presented very well.
I
To
think
be
they
completely
finally
honest,
have like differentiated all of them. It feels like they've started to, so
yeah,
that's been good.
and they all feel important in their own way. Um, but I don't. But I definitely think I could see him. He could be TNT champion. I could see that.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's not a surprise. That wouldn't be a surprise to me. So
I think I could see him winning and holding pretty much every belt title. Like maybe not like a long reign for the intercontinent. I mean international, but like like I could see it.
yeah, absolutely. And
Um,
I do think that I don't see him having the world title. I think that I think that they're doing better about protecting all the champs and making them all feel important, but they definitely have they try to be a lot more protective with that world title, I've noticed.
I, I disagree. I think that the world title has lost its prestige in the way they've been booking it the past like since during essentially during Swerve's reign. I don't think.
I do think they've been careful about who they give it to.
Oh yeah, they've been yes, they've been very careful about who they give it to since around I would say like All Out 2022.
Yeah.
Um but I haven't really loved Swerve's reign because I know that there are bad faithers out there have said this, but this is not me being all bad faithy. I genuinely do think that he does too many non-title matches that are singles matches. I think that he should be doing more tag matches or just promos and stuff like that to stay on screen because like if anybody can fight the world champion, then it doesn't make it a big deal to fight the world champion. But that's just my hot take on that.
I will withhold my judgment on Swerve's title reign until after Wembley.
Yes, where he'll probably lose it. It looks like.
I don't think he will.
I,
I think
I don't think he's going to lose it at Forbidden Door, but I think you might lose it at Wembley,
I think he's walking out of Wembley still champ.
and that'd be good for him.
Yeah.
Uh, so he's not losing to Ricochet, is what you're saying at Wembley.
He is not losing to Ricochet at Wembley.
Okay, noted. I'm going to write that one down so that we have it on the record. But okay, so to get back on
In fact,
track
here,
a little bit.
real quick,
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna put it out there just to see if I'm correct. So here
Oh
on June 15th, 2024,
yeah.
I am telling you that the world title match at Wembley is going to be Swerve versus Bryan Danielson, and Swerve will win.
I think okay. I'm intrigued. I'm not going to say anything yet. I don't think. Wait, let me do mine then. I think that at Wembley, the world title match will be Osprey versus Danielson, and Danielson will win.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
All right. Sounds good. We'll
No
see.
Hangman. Okay, but
I do
I
listen.
think
I think Hangman.
I think that's more likely. It would be Hangman versus Swerve, but than Danielson.
I think Hangman versus Swerve is the all out match.
Ooh, hot.
Mhm.
Okay, so get back on Ricochet. We think that the number one promotion most likely for him is AEW. Second most likely is New Japan. Is that correct?
I would say New Japan and TNA are both in that same tier. But
I
I
think
would put New Japan above TNA.
I would say that it's possible that he just does the whole AEW partner promotion thing,
Yeah.
and
But
I could see
there is a chasm between like AEW and like everyone else. It's
yeah.
so clearly probably AEW to me.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think that it'll be fun to see him. I think that he could also go down to CMLL for a little bit and have some fun there if he wants to.
If
Um,
CMLL is okay with that because we know
if
how they are.
CMLL's, yeah, because they've been weird in the past about people, but they've started to loosen up about their restrictions a little bit.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
but yes,
for those of you who aren't aware, he was a AAA adjacent wrestler as in
Lucha.
Lucha Underground.
Yeah. But it's been a while, so who knows?
Yes,
So how about we take a quick break here now that we finished talking about Ricochet, and then we'll go through the rest of the tier list. Does that sound good?
sounds good to me.
Cool. We'll be right back with the WrestleWatch podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the WrestleWatch podcast, the only podcast where we cover solely free agency in the world of professional wrestling. I'm Ryan over here, and it's time to go through the rest of the WrestleWatch tier list for this week.
Yeah, we only talk about free agency.
Yes, we only talk about free agency.
Nothing else.
Yes,
nothing else ever.
Nothing else ever.
Yes.
That's why we talked about Bryan Danielson last segment.
Yes, or plants.
Yes.
And coffee. And Pop-Tarts.
And Legacy activities.
Mm-hmm.
So up in S tier, of course, these are the imminent debuts, the folks that we are expecting to be premiering someday soon. And it feels like it's been the same people for like over a month, so maybe they're not going to premiere that soon. But we know that all these folks are signed. So let's go through them. It's Camille, Jacob Fatu, Motor City Machine Guns, and Eric Rowan. It feels like there's been no news on any of them ever since we heard that they're getting signed, where they're going.
Motor City Machine Guns are working a freelance wrestling show in Chicago at the end of the month. That's something. I mean, it's not really something, but just something.
It's something.
Yes. But yeah, I have nothing to add to any of these.
Yeah. Same. It's just they're just living there. They're Mercedesing right now. Up in A tier now, we got two people in A tier. These are the likely jumps. We just covered Ricochet the last segment. The other person that's in A tier who we'll have a little bit to talk about is Hikuleo. Finally going up to A tier.
Which, by the way, I'm very happy we finally have people in A tier again.
Oh, yeah. And I think that he is one of the perfect examples of an A tier person because he just finished up his New Japan time. What was it, last week? I think it was. He had his last match at Dominion. Yeah, it looks like he's going to WWE. They've already copyrighted a hilarious name, Tonga, I think
Tala
is the name.
Tonga. Yes.
Tonga, because he's the tallest of the Tongans, you know.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, I think we've been saying this for a couple weeks now. We've been expecting him to go to WWE, I think.
Oh yeah, like 1000%. This is not shocking to me at all to see this movement. Also, just for the joke's sake, his middle name is Tola, but it's like pronounced. It's spelled differently.
Yeah,
so.
I'm not buying that. No, it's Tala because he's tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like he is fed bound to go join his brother and cousin over there in the WWE universe, likely joining the Bloodline, of course, because that's the only thing that Trips knows how to do.
Yeah. Which, by the way, another guy who just skips NXT apparently, which is once again amusing that we are now sending the message to the people in NXT that if you want to get to the main roster quickly and avoid this, lower paying NXT brand, go somewhere else first.
Yeah. Well, I think that the wind of change of NXT, it feels like, as we talked about last week, NXT started to shift the way that it's looking at its roster with the types of people that they're bringing in recently. It feels like they're trying to mix up things between performance center people and outside talent or people that they're bringing back, even like Sean Spears. But Hikuleo, I think it's pretty solid that he's I don't see him going anywhere else. So
no, I think that's perfectly. I have not really anything else to say on Hikuleo. I think we all kind of knew he was going. Now we just have more confirmation that he's going.
Yeah,
I expect him up there soon.
Yeah, so I expect to see him in Cleveland. That'll be the new game. Which stadium is this free agent going to be showing up in August? Yes. And I think for him, it's in Cleveland. Ricochet was the other person in A tier, as mentioned. I think that his stadium is in London. So the B tier now has two new people up in B tier this week. Just to start off with, the other people are Grizzled Young Veterans and Ricky Starks. Of course, B tier are the people that we were saying are probably going to be jumping. Quick note on the Grizzled Young Veterans: it does seem like that they're starting to negotiate with AEW, but it doesn't look like anything has been agreed upon solidly yet.
Yes.
So I still think that is the general direction that they're going to be going in. Just to do a quick read of this is from Fightful Select. It does look like there is the possibility that it will change, that the AEW match was their first and only match. We're told that there will have been ongoing contract talks between the two sides. As of last week, it wasn't a slam dunk, but it seems like that they'll end up there still. I think that they would be a great addition to the tag team division there in AEW. And I hope that it works out.
Yes, I agree. I feel the same way.
And then Ricky Stark's still sitting there, sitting pretty Ricky in B tier. The two new people for B tier are the biggest event ever in TNA history last night. Was the
it was sold out.
It was sold out in the Cicero Stadium. It was a stadium show when you think about it.
It was.
Yeah.
Stadium that holds 2,000 people at most.
Let's not get into that. No. It was 1,000 screaming Nero-maniacs because Jeff Hardy has shown up in TNA. His AEW contract expired literally yesterday. The report was that there was the option essentially for AEW to add injury time and stuff like that to his contract, and they just decided not to for some reason.
Probably just they probably just don't care to go.
Yeah, I think that it's also possible that because it sounded like they were still trying to keep Matt at the time because they put a contract on the table and he just didn't want to go for that contract. I think it's possible that they might have wanted to stay on good terms with both of them just in case they want them to come back at some point. So the best way to do that in this circumstance is to not, dispute a contract running out.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think Matt and Jeff left on bad terms. I think that I think they both, it was a mutual thing where they realized, everything that they did has run its course. There's nothing else. So go away. Maybe come back if you have something interesting years down the line, but I don't know that I necessarily foresee that.
Yeah, well, I guess we're never going to get that TLC four-way match between the Hardys, Edge and Christian, Young Bucks, and FTR. Mm-hmm. Now, is that the biggest fumble in AEW history? I don't know.
I don't need it, but yeah.
People are saying that Matt Hardy was the biggest fumble. I think I may have said this last week, and I just said I think 5 times in a row. But I think that the Hardys are probably were waiting for their contracts to align before Matt settled somewhere, and I think that they're just going to be staying in TNA.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're both staying there. I honestly thought that there was a decent chance that they were both, that Matt was just hanging out in TNA, and then once Jeff was going, he was going to go and maybe they're either going to go to TNA, like how looks like they're doing, or I thought they might go back to WWE. I think that a lot of people discount that and think that WWE wouldn't want them back, and it's I disagree. I absolutely think they would take them back.
Yeah, I'm one of those people because I mean the reason why Jeff left was because of substance issues and all those kinds of things. So I'm not so sure, but as has been stated, they've been open arms about a lot of other questionable people. So
so I think they're probably going to be off the tier list next week, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's possible that by this time next week we'll find out where they're going to be going.
Yeah.
Down in the C tier, we have a movement here. Yeah, we do. So C tier is our 50-50 shots. We're not so sure which way they're going to be going. Sheamus, Cameron Grimes, or as Doug loves him, Trevor Lee.
Yes.
Who is going to be doing some indie dates, it looks like. Speedball Mike Bailey, Mustafa Ali, the Von Erichs, and freshly moved up to C tier is Lio Rush. Before we get into Lio, did you have any comments on the rest of the people in C tier, Doug?
I do not.
Okay, well then it's time to get into Lio Rush. Yeah, so it was very intriguing this week on AEW television because tonight, as we're recording this on Saturday, tonight on Collision, Lio Rush will be teaming up with TMDK and Rocky Romero to face off with Blackpool Combat Club on Collision. Now, the interesting thing about that is not that he's going to show back up on AEW television, which, again, as we've pointed out, AEW is a promotion we look at. So maybe that could be a thing. However, the big thing with that was that Excalibur said of New Japan Pro Wrestling to describe Lio Rush. So that is intriguing to hear that he's being billed as from New Japan.
Yeah, that is a interesting little caveat to this, and something else to keep in mind that we are in Forbidden Door season.
Yes.
So it does make me think that maybe he is not going to be around afterwards, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's possible that, yeah, you could just be like, doing like a little trial run and they're saying that he's from New Japan because that was the most recent thing that he did.
And because obviously he's not signed to New Japan, but he's.
But I mean, I think that it's pretty. I think it's pretty likely. I actually think that's more than a 50-50 shot that I think he's going to go back to New Japan once the Forbidden Door season is over.
And just be there regularly. Yeah, I think that's very possible. I mean, in terms of like, I feel like I don't count him as a New Japan guy right now. Like, well, so like if he were to like sign to New Japan, I like it. Some people would say, well, that's not a jump. He's already been there. It's like, I don't know that I consider him. I think he's a freelancer right now.
Well, we already voted on that, so I have to agree.
Yeah, and because of exactly. So I'm just reiterating for people who maybe just parachuted in. So if he either goes, if he ends up like long term with New Japan or AEW, that's considered a jump. So it's a 50-50 that he doesn't necessarily. He either does one of those two or he doesn't do either one. Because I don't know that he's going to go to TNA. I feel like we've already kind of crossed that bridge.
Yeah.
I don't see him going back to WWE, obviously.
Yeah. So I think it's possible that he sticks around just doing indies, sure.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. I think that's just as likely as him either going to AW or TNA. And I do think that we don't know what's going to happen. I don't think he does too, or any of the people in AEW or New Japan, because they're probably just seeing how this little run goes.
Yeah. So
you might have another meltdown. You don't
know. Maybe. But yeah, I think that covers Lio Rush pretty well. Down in D tier, we have some movement in D tier, and we might want to pit stop at one of these people anyway, or a few of these people actually. We might want to pit stop on. Yes. So D tier are the people that we're probably not jumping, improbable jumps. We have Malachi Black, Dustin Rhodes, Jinder Mahal, Tekla, Kevin Owens, Natalya, Danhausen, Shelton Benjamin, Alex Windsor, Becky Lynch, TNA joining up with WWE is on the tier list and it's in D tier. The other two people are new to D tier. It's Katsuhiko Nakajima dropping down from B tier, and brand new to the tier list, MXM, or Maximum Male Models as they used to be known as. I wanted to pit stop on Natalya.
Okay. And then I want to talk about Nakajima.
Yeah. So this was an interesting week for Natalya for things that she didn't do. Because this week, Jordynne Grace tried to tease on Twitter that her opponent were against all odds. And she made it seem like Natalya was going to be the opponent. She referenced the Owen Hart quote of, it's time for a change. She capitalized letters here and there to make it spell out Natalya or Natty, and people were like, oh, is it Natty? Is it Natty time? No, it was not. It was somebody named Tatum Paxley.
It's Tatum Paxley time.
Yeah, she was the person that at Battleground this past weekend where Jordynne Grace challenged unsuccessfully for the NXT Women's title. She was the one that was involved with the screwy finish where she goes to the ring announcer, steals the TNA Knockouts belt, and then who was it that came out? It was Dana Brooke. I mean, excuse me. TNA's Ash by Elegance comes out and tries to take the belt away from her, and then Jordynne runs out and beats them both up, and then loses like with one move. It was a really bad finish. It was a pretty good match, but a bad finish. And Tatum actually was involved in that, and yeah, the TNA crowd had zero clue who she was, and I bet that some of them were expecting Natalya to be the person. So yeah, don't know why it wasn't Natalya. I don't know if Jordynne Grace was just doing something to do something, and went out on her own to make that assumption out there that maybe Natalya was going to show up, but she did not show up in TNA. So the people that have been looking forward to Natalya and Tokyo Joshi Pro, your stock went up today. And of course, Alex Windsor was on Rampage again. She got a nice little video package. I think next week I would want to nominate Alex Windsor to move up a tier, because I think that is becoming more likely that she's going to be staying with AEW full time.
Yeah, I could see that. And here's the thing with her. She's someone I think you know Osprey ties are relevant to
Yeah,
this.
that's relevant to Ricochet also.
Yes, I just want to say completely relevant when what I'm going to say, but I think she's someone who would, obviously wants to live in the UK still, doesn't want to
Yes.
move. I think, AEW is a good promotion for someone like that, just because they don't want, they don't have to do tours and loops and, 5 shows in 5 days and things like that. You come in for your Wednesday or Saturday and then you go home.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a good landing spot for people with her who have, family situations and things like that. So, and here's the thing, she's really, really has a resume built up that people don't
She
even,
does.
I don't think people realize this, because it's like, she was the Tokyo Joshi Pro International Princess Champion.
Yeah.
She was the Ace of Eve in Eve when she won the She Won in the UK Indies. I mean, and this is
She
all
won.
this is all pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, she's built up, she's had some time, and then she's
Yeah.
just gotten. I feel like I don't know if I'd necessarily say she's gotten better, but she's always been really solid. She's still solid, so I think she'd be
Yeah.
a good hand to bring in. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that she's a solid hand, and like I think that one of the things also they really did they pushed her accomplishments on the broadcast last night for Rampage. They make sure to mention like she was the Rev Pro champ, but they did not mention TJPW though, which was interesting.
Hmm.
Uh,
That is
but
interesting.
they mentioned that she was trained by Sweet Soraya, the Knight family. So they brought in that little thing there, that little thread to somebody else that's already in AEW. But yeah, when I look at it, I'm like, she's the kind of person that her abilities are super solid, and you could probably have her, on Rampage when Will flies over, or do a match on Ring of Honor if Will's flying over for the weekend. So like I think that it's possible that I think that on her own merits, I think that she could get signed. Period. I think that with the added bonus of, oh well, we're already flying Will over. Well, if you want to fly over too, yeah, we can definitely get you, a little match on Rampage, put you in a tag match, put you on Ring of Honor. Like that increases the likelihood, I think, of her sticking around.
Yeah, I think so too.
So yeah, I think that covers everything except for Nakajima and Maximum Male Models. So let's get into
Here,
Nakajima
let me
then.
talk. Yeah, I want to talk about Nakajima. So
Yeah.
he's one that for a while at this point, I feel like we need to just get him off the tier list.
Mm-hmm.
Now he looks like he's up in GLEAT, and I'll be honest, I'm a GLEAT respecter. Do not get me wrong, I respect GLEAT, but it is not a promotion that we follow.
Yeah.
And this seems to be kind of the tier of promotion that he's just kind of going to be bouncing around at. So I have no indication to show that he is going to be jumping to anywhere that we actually consider a tiered promotion. So I
Yeah.
think he should be off the list. But I understand that he still got voted for D. But I would remove him if it
It
was up to
was
me.
it was pretty contentious of a vote, I would say. Like usually for people that are already on the tier list, it's like maybe like 3 different tiers that the committee are looking at for them. Like, for example, Chad Gable, there was like a few people that were like, oh, yeah, he should be up in D tier. Everybody pretty much agreed, though, that he should stay in F tier just because we still don't know what's going to be the results of this weekend. Of course, you listening at home probably know exactly what happened in Glasgow, but we don't. We're in the past. This is time travel. Grizzled Young Veterans, same kind of thing. It was like a 50-50 split between we should move them up to A tier because it sounds like they're going to sign with AEW. We should keep them in B tier because they haven't finalized the deal yet. They're just still talking. They could still go over to TNA. Stuff like that. Nakajima was just it felt like nobody knew where to put him anymore because like it's just so hard to
There's so many variables with him.
quantify. Yeah, there's so many variables, and as some people have joked about, like some people were joking, like, oh yeah, well he's watch him get added to the G1 just like out of nowhere, like that's the kind of thing that could happen. And I have just as much faith in him sticking around in every single B tier Japanese promotion and just hopping around all of them as much as I do of him showing up to the G1. I don't know what's going to happen with this guy.
Yeah.
And it's not because like I don't follow the B tier promotions, and I know I'm calling them B tier, but the second tier promotions of Japan as much, but like I feel like that's kind of what's going on here. Is like we don't know where he's gonna go.
And once again, it doesn't help that Japan is it's in such a weird place right now.
Yeah, it's like the United Japan stuff is kind of making it easier for somebody to do something like this, which is pretty cool, I think, actually. But yeah, I think that's Nakajima pretty much covered there. We'll see him in the G1, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then the other person in D tier of people, we just added maximum male models to the tier list. That is Mason Mansoor.
MXM.
Yeah. So do you have some thoughts on them, Doug?
Well, aren't they making their Collision debut upcoming?
I believe so. Yeah. So the report from Fightful Select this week is maximum male models seem to be possibly going to AEW at least once. They have learned that MXM are booked for this weekend's Collision. So tonight or yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this, you probably have already seen them on Collision in Youngstown. They beat Blackpool Combat Club, maybe. I don't know. We're not sure what their creative plans are or if they're going to speak with AEW. However, as of this week, they were planned to be at the show. Mace, aka Mason Madden, and Mansoor have talked with TNA Wrestling in recent months and made a trip to Uganda, of course, to appear on SGW. Mansoor was also backstage for the Los Angeles Dynamite, the first Dynamite after Double or Nothing. So it seems like he might have just been there because it's in LA and he's friends with people. But now we're seeing, hey, wait a second, they're getting booked on Collision after that happened. Like when that happened, I remember people were like, oh, maybe there's something here. And I was very tepid because I was like, well, look, it's in LA. He's backstage. It doesn't mean anything,
I think
now I think it might have meant something.
Yeah, I think listen, I don't necessarily think that they're going to get a major push.
No.
But having said that, I do think that there is a very strong possibility that they get signed and are just kind of like a lower card act that are just around, maybe just occasionally will win their matches against jobbers and things like that, but are just there to kind of put over people. And I think that that's a perfectly fine spot for them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I think that their position in if they were to join AEW formally, I think that they're like good tag team filler. They're solid hands enough. I think that they could have a decent enough run for Ring of Honor and get a pop from the people that are coming in early to see Ring of Honor matches.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that they could be fun. So yeah, that's them. They're in D tier. F tier actually has had no changes really. So I'm just gonna shoot through the names, and then I think we might want to chat for 1 second back on the TNA thing once we're done with this. So in F tier, these are the unlikely jumps. They're most likely going to either stay where they're currently at, whether that is promotion or stay being independent or whatever have you, or the odds are that they're probably going to just not sign somewhere else, We have Sari Utami Hayashishida, Hook, El Phantasmo, Nikki Bella, Gigi Dolan, Buddy Matthews, Kaito Kiyomiya, Matt Cardona, Michael Oku, Chad Gable, Jake Hager, and Dijak. So just I just have two quick notes. Chad Gable, we'll find out tonight, or you've already found out when you're listening to this podcast. You're either really angry, you're probably angry about where Chad Gable is on the tier list right now if you're listening. So sorry about that. We either have him too high or too low. Editor Ryan here. Of course, right after we finished recording this episode, I look at my phone and Chad Gable has re-signed with WWE. I'm sure we will be talking all about that next week on the episode, but for now, let's get back to the pod. The other one was Gigi Dolan, which I saw a funny thing. Was Gigi Dolan's injured, and was it Brian Alvarez joked about somebody else stealing his reports about her?
Yeah, Corey Brennan.
Yeah. I think the quote was, Corey should have stolen my report in May that she was hurt.
Yeah, here's the thing with Gigi Dolan. I think that she is very talented, a lot more talented than people give her credit for, especially for her push. But I also feel like, she had a chance to sign with AEW and they didn't offer her anything as far as I know. So at that point, I don't have a reason to think that they would want to offer her something now. So whatever. I think she's fine where she's at. I don't necessarily see her jumping unless, something changed.
Yeah, so that's why I think she's fine enough to. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, she's injured and I don't, until I hear something more, we'll go. I don't think I have anything else to add. And I'll be honest, I don't really have anything to add about any of these people.
Yeah, I don't think anything's really changed with any of them. I think that you wanted to chat a little bit about these partnerships that promotions are having with each other, these crossovers, and if they're actually being beneficial to the promotions. Is that right, Doug?
Yeah, I think we need to have that discussion because it's a discussion that we've also had about New Japan as well with AEW. So I think that it's time to kind of branch out and make it a little bit bigger.
Okay, well, I would love to fill up my coffee. So how about we take our last quick break and we come back to do that discussion?
Yep, let me do that as well.
Okay, cool. We'll be right back with WrestleWatch. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the WrestleWatch podcast, the podcast where we talk about free agency in the world of pro wrestling. This segment, of course, is not going to be about that, though. We're going to be talking about these partnerships. That's right, Doug, that promotions are having. Because what were you saying about it, Doug, right before we got on air?
Well, I think the big thing that we need to talk about with this is just how it's really started to heat up recently. Like in a big way. We're seeing these different promotions finally kind of build up and become, especially on WWE side, they didn't necessarily do the partnerships. They used to joke that they were behind the Iron Curtain and wouldn't necessarily work with other companies. And now we're seeing, dabbling with All Japan. We saw a little bit with, a little bit with Marigold, obviously, with Io Sky going over there, and now we have TNA as kind of like the big one.
Yeah.
So we're seeing WWE kind of break that down. They're actually they're partnering up. On top of that, we're seeing, they also, obviously the other one was they had Nakamura go over with Noah, but also, Darby Allin and Sting went over for Noah too. So I don't know if that necessarily is anything, but it'll be interesting where Cyber Fight kind of just lands on all of this, just because, as AEW seems to tighten its partnership with Bushiroad, and along with their just kind of their allegiance, where you have Stardom, CMLL, New Japan, all just kind of working together, and not so much the other ones. I think we're seeing the dividing lines begin to form.
Yeah, we are. So I think that it's interesting to see how WWE goes about all this into the future of just how involved they get with these other promotions, because as we just saw, Tatum Paxley is not even Natalia level of a sharing of a talent, you know? Or to put it more succinctly, uh NXT got Jordynne Grace, who is their world champion, right?
Yes.
And then TNA got somebody else. Like that's not even competing for the world championship tier, as far as I'm aware, in the NXT orbit. So it's kind of odd, you know?
Tatum Paxley.
Yeah, like it's kind of odd to me, like the disparity between the balance between these partners, whereas like with how AEW's been, it hasn't been as imbalanced.
It hasn't, but at the same time, though, this isn't necessarily unheard of. I mean, it hasn't been unbalanced with AEW and New Japan, but we are seeing, AEW is clearly the more dominant promotion in that partnership in the sense of, AEW talent are winning more often than not.
Yeah,
I like almost every single time a New Japan talent comes to AEW, the AEW talent wins. And
yeah,
I'd say now, granted, you could say like, well, every single time. I no, I wouldn't even say that. You look at the talent who go from AEW to New Japan. A lot of times, it's like 50-50 at best. You're still seeing the AEW talent win a lot. I
yeah,
mean, let's be honest. The IWGP World Champion right now is Jon Moxley.
yeah,
So that's granted that's probably not going to last much longer, but we are seeing this. We're seeing these uh the power dynamics at play here.
yeah.
And I guess I wanted to bring up this question more broadly because this would include AEW and New Japan, this would include TNA and WWE, but is there a benefit, a real benefit to the lesser promotion in these deals? Because you take
Mm-hmm.
a look at like I don't know, is New Japan really benefiting from this partnership? In some ways, I'm sure they are, but then you take a look at the TNA partnership with WWE right now.
Yeah,
And the one thing that I remember that came out last week was that TNA were kind of disappointed with the rating at the most recent TNA episode because they thought it would go up a little bit just because of Jordynne Grace's involvement in NXT and kind of build some buzz. And I don't think that happened.
no, it didn't. No,
And it did not. And then I think like just more broadly, like as having your talent on a bigger show helping get more people interested in your show. And I think it helps get them more interested in the talent, maybe, but not so much that they want to go out of their way to go watch the show.
yeah,
Because you take a look at all the lucha talent that AEW brought in from CMLL. I don't
mm-hmm.
know that necessarily has made them want to go out of their way to watch, CMLL's Friday night show at Arena Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes them more aware of the talent.
Yeah,
Like, Vikingo, people, if he's got a match in AEW, people are really excited to watch that match now because they really like Vikingo. But if they hear Vikingo's, wrestling on some Triple Mania, that's not necessarily, they're not necessarily going to go out of their way to go ahead and do that. And on top of that, I don't necessarily know that I feel that AEW fans have not been doing that. You're not seeing a lot of AEW fans going out of their way to watch that. And I feel like WWE fans are probably this, they've had decades of conditioning that, their promotion is the number one promotion. They're the place to be.
yeah,
Um, and they just don't have, I just don't know what if I see them leaving, you know what I mean? And going, not leaving, but branching out. I just don't see that at all.
yeah, yeah. I think that the an interesting thing with this is like, let me try to think of how to phrase it. So it does feel like, though, at the same time, with the folks that are coming to those promotions, there are different reactions that they're getting. So I point out to the fact that it seemed like for example, Shota Umino is just over in the US with the AEW crowd. They are cheering for him very well. The AEW crowd seemed to be aware of Stephanie Vacour before she appeared. So there might be there might be awareness of who these people are, either through osmosis or through watching already, but it doesn't seem like they're getting necessarily more viewers out of it long term. I don't think that we've had like stats from CMLL or New Japan about the long term impacts. But I know that we just had it from TNA where they were like, this did not pop a rating for us at all.
Yeah.
But it's also at the same time, it's like, well, TNA, you had this. Wasn't this like a recorded episode? So this has been in the bag for a while, right? So it's like maybe people just know because you haven't like there hasn't been any word that somebody's going to be appearing out of nowhere, that they already know that you're not going to have a surprise appearance.
Yeah. Well, and I think the TNA pay-per-view number will be a better indicator of that to see how this Against All Odds show did. But I do think it does. But that also goes back to my point that I don't know if this is necessarily helping the other promotions, but it is helping the talent. Because, and once again, it's, as I said, it's making a lot of these promotions just definitely seem like, little brother.
Yes.
It's little brothering these promotions, and TNA very much. And it does, and with TNA especially, it's like they're being compared to NXT.
Yeah, they're not being compared to the top tier brand.
Yeah,
of the,
which I think that really doesn't help.
Yeah, it's like if New Japan Strong was, getting like if AEW was like, oh yeah, we'll send our little prospects over to New Japan, but it's like, oh, but New Japan Strong should have been that for you guys, right? So like, why there's AEW sending their best to New Japan. It doesn't
and New
feel
Japan
like
Strong. They were sending their best to New Japan Strong too.
Yeah, so like they're recognizing each other as equals. Even if financially and all those other kinds of things, and the way that they're booked, it might be one way, but the actual talent that's being exchanged is looking at each other as equals.
Yes.
So that's been a positive. I feel like I really liked. Personally, I really liked the Shota Umino match last night, so that's might be a little bit tinged on that. Might be a little bit biased, but.
And I did not see the Shota Umino. Who won that match?
Shota.
Okay.
It was against Rocky Romero.
Okay,
though,
yeah. So obviously,
does it count?
Yeah, because the guy Rocky Romero, he's in 3 offices right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great because that was another one that in that promotion they said, oh yeah, it's DMDK and Lio Rush and Rocky Romero from New Japan. It's like, wait a second, Rocky Romero.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm talking about with this relationship too, though, with Rocky Romero, is that he works for CMLL, AEW, and Bushiroad. He works for all 3 of them.
Yeah,
and he seems to be the in between to all of them, and I feel like these 3 groups are solidifying and kind of like focusing on just themselves. We're not now, granted, we're still seeing, Takeshita will still go back to DDT and stuff here or there. That doesn't seem to necessarily be changing. I don't think AEW is necessarily blocking anyone out. At least they're trying not to. That's always been kind of their stance, is that, hey, we will work with everybody. We're fine with that. But it is notable, to say the least. You know what I mean? That we're seeing them start to solidify a little bit, and because of that, we're starting to see WWE kind of go with the people who, more or less got iced out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes into the future. We'll definitely be intriguing to see how things are going with TNA after this week. Yeah. Hopefully for their sake, I hope that it works out for them. But
and that's really all I had to say on that. I just want to kind of touch on that. I think it's an interesting situation, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of WrestleWatch. Is that right, Doug?
That is it.
Okay, cool. Well, we will be back next week with more info about wrestler free agency. I think we'll have some stuff probably to talk about with like Chad Gable, for example. So it'll be a fun week coming up ahead of us.
Absolutely. All right. So
All right.
with that, I am Doug.
And I'm Ryan. Stay tuned for more WrestleWatch coming up soon. Until then, have a good rest of your week.
You as well.